life be about life? I know some of you are very happy today because it is the 7th of a 7-part sermon series. We're finally finishing up and getting to the end of this. Leading causes of life is what we've been looking at. 6 Sundays so far. This is the 7th. Actually, it's the 8th if you count the one where I was sick and we didn't actually do it. But it's 7 on the series. And we've been talking about the leading causes of life, and I was going to put a question out to you, and then I said, do I really want to be embarrassed? And I said, no, I'll just read them what the 5 leading causes of life are instead of asking them to tell me. But hopefully somebody out there can tell me, but just in case, I'll just read them out loud. The first one was connection, then coherence, then agency, blessing, and hope. I'm going to sum up today. This sermon is going to be the summation of what we've been looking at. But I just want to talk a little bit. I know not everybody could make all of these. All but one is on the webpage. We had technical difficulty 1 week, so we lost one of them. I think blessing got lost, but the rest of them are going to be on the webpage. My prayer for this sermon series was that you would be able to recognize these 5 things. Connection, coherence, agency, blessing, and hope, when you saw them out in the world. We talked about this sermon series being kind of like a field guide for you. If you use a field guide out in the woods, I mean, you can go out in the woods without a field guide and you can see some beauty and you can see what's out there, but to really know what you're looking at, to really identify what it is that you're seeing, and probably to even appreciate it more, you need a field guide. You need something that points out to you what it is that you're seeing and why it's so important. Well, I'm hoping that this sermon series is doing that for you, has done that for you, that you'll be able to, when you go out into the world, identify connection and coherency and agency and blessing and hope, and recognize when you see one of them, we've always talked about this, when you see one of them, you will probably see the others, or at least some of the others. Very rarely will you find one of these in isolation from the others, and that's one of the reasons why they're so important and why they bring life to us. When we see them, my hope is that you'll be able to nurture them and allow them to grow in you and in the situation so that life will become more abundant. And that is the important part of what we're talking about here. Jesus said in today's text, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. That they may have life and have it abundantly. Abundant life does not speak about the lengthening of our years. If you're thinking the reason we were studying the leading causes of life is because you wanted to live to be 110, you weren't hearing the messages very well. It has nothing to do with increasing the years that we live. What it has to do with is deepening the years of our life. Deepening our life and increasing the power of our life. No matter how long or how short our life is. You see, when God speaks to us about life through the Scriptures, God is primarily speaking about wholeness. About the wholeness of life. About the lifting up of the presence of life. About the importance of life working itself out. He's not necessarily talking about longevity. We see that very clearly in our text from Revelation this morning. We see the picture of the New Jerusalem. This is John's vision of what heaven and earth will be like when Jesus has come again. And he sees this New Jerusalem dropping out of the sky and coming down from heaven. And this is the Jerusalem of eternity and everlasting life. Remember it says, where death will be no more, where mourning and crying and pain will be no more. So the lengthening of life is not any part of this. We already, at this point, are talking about eternal and everlasting life. It's in this context that we see the river of life flowing through the city, through the center of the street of the city, with the tree of life stretching across on either side. I picture a twin trunk tree growing up over this river of life and blossoming out. And it talks about the fruits. But the important piece to me, it says that the leaves are for the healing of the nations. So this tree of life is not about giving us eternal life or everlasting life. We have that already as we're in this New Jerusalem. The tree of life is about the wholeness of life, the healing of brokenness, the recovery discovery of what life is supposed to be about. It's about living a life that's worth living. It's about the power that comes from life. And what I would like to say this morning is that these leading causes of life that we've been discussing are the very things that God gives us that allows that power to be real, that allows the deepening of that life to happen. The first one was connection. We talked about connection being the network of relationships that we have. It's the thing that allows those other leading causes of life to flow through the networks, to become available to us. It causes life to flow. It's your family or your co-workers, it's your neighbors, it's your community. Hopefully it's your church, but it's the place where you connect with other people. It's the place where you develop and build those relationships that bring life. Now that in and of itself is not enough to make life happen. Remember I said these things aren't in isolation. We need them all. And that's when we find them, we need to be able to nurture them. But connection is where the action happens. Coherence is the shared meaning and purpose of life. When a group gathers together and is connected, the coherence is in their shared purpose and meaning for that group, for that gathering. It's the place where goals are set. It's the place where the future is envisioned. When we hear that, we think of hope, which we'll talk about later. It's the place where future is envisioned. It's where meaningful movement and work that blesses others and leads to a brighter future for you and those who come after you takes place. This is where it takes place. It's through the coherence, through the shared purpose and meaning, together as we're connected. Agency is where the rubber meets the road. We talked about, we can remember agency because, well, it's hard for us today. I also said this, I think, when I preached on agency, because every time I think of agency, I think about where work doesn't get done. But it's supposed to be where work does get done. When you go to the motor vehicles agency, it's a bad example. But anyway, agency is the ability to accomplish something. It's the ability to do, to make happen, to create, to make. And so this is where the rubber meets the road. It doesn't matter if we have a shared purpose and meaning if we don't take the steps of action, of agency, to accomplish our goals that get us to the final destination. Agency is where we do the work. Blessing. Blessing, we said, can be defined as anything that is good that is either given to someone else or received from someone else. If it's something bad, then it's what? It's not a blessing, it's a curse. Right, it's a curse. So blessing is anything good. When we hand down to the generations that follow us the work that we have accomplished, we are blessing them. And we'll talk more about the youth in a minute, but we get blessed by the youth because we see their energy and their vitality and their hope for the future, and in us it blesses us with encouragement for life. Increases our hope for what the future will be after we leave this earth. Blessing is the good that is given and received. We can't bless ourselves. If you give something good to yourself, it's technically not a blessing. It's only a blessing if it's handed down to someone else or received from someone else. It's why we tend to say, God bless you, or if you're needed, God bless me. I would say, Chris, bless me. Chris,